Insects. Yes, I'm still scared of them. And since you guys loved my last Fear of Insects video, I figured that I'd make another one. Alright, so this first story happened when I was on a hiking trail. Just walking along. And for me, hiking trails are where the bugs never seem to leave me alone. Well, I guess they can actually sense fear in other living things. So that's pretty scary. Anyway, I was on a hiking trail when some kind of black flying insect landed on me. I looked down at it and I was so freaked out, I couldn't even look at it. I don't even know how to describe this thing. It looked sort of like a wasp, but with weird tentacle antenna things. I sat there for like 10 seconds, hoping that this thing would just fly away. But it didn't. I was freaking out, and the only thing I could think of was to hit it really hard. I hit that wasp as hard as I could and held my hand on it. But only like 2 seconds later, I suddenly felt a really sharp pain in that same spot. This thing is still alive, and it's stinging me. I took my hand off the wasp, and it just flew away as if nothing had just happened. I looked back at the spot it landed on me, and sure enough, this weird wasp had stung me. Thankfully, the sting was pretty weak and didn't really hurt that much afterwards. But as an entomophobe, I was still shaking. Speaking of wasps, there was recently a wasp nest in my backyard. And every time I went outside, these frickin' wasps always buzzed around like zzzz. Shut up already. There were certain times where they would actually land on me. And when they would, I would absolutely bolt for the house. And they would chase after me too. Wasps are just the worst. Later on, we got some bug killer and sprayed it into the nest, and they actually went away. For like 2 hours. I later found that they made another nest in a different part of our backyard. But then my brother Steven whacked it with a baseball bat, and they never came back. This one time I was at a park with some friends, and on the other side of the park, I could see some crazy locust flying all over the place. I was a little worried, but it wasn't that big of a deal, because it was like 200 feet away. Even with my fear of insects, why should I be afraid of a locust that's 200 feet away? But then it started to make a beeline straight for me. It's a locust that's 200 feet away, and it somehow sees me and starts flying straight at me. I'm slowly starting to panic, hoping that the locust will change directions. But it doesn't. Now the distance between us is more like 50 feet. I'm now genuinely freaked out. It was one of those noisy locusts too. So it started to get louder and louder, and the locust was getting closer and closer. I ran away and the locust chased after me. I could not believe my terrible luck. My friends looked at me like I was crazy. The locust caught up to me and was trying to land on me. So it was literally hitting me, which for normal people would only feel a little funny, but for me it felt like I was going to die. I tripped and fell, and for some reason, when I fell down, the locust suddenly had no interest in me and flew away. It was as if it just wanted to show me who was boss and then leave. It was so weird. Oh, and my friends thought the whole thing was the funniest thing they had ever seen. They were laughing their butts off. Alright, last story for today, guys. When I was a kid, we had a big pond in the backyard, and every time I went near that pond, there would always be like 100 bees flying around and, believe it or not, slurping up the pond water. And yes, I had to Google this. Bees do drink water just like people. Anyway, whenever the bees went to get a drink, they always fell into the pond. Always. Literally every day. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Sometimes I even saw it happen. Most of the time, the bees would push each other in. I guess it's survival of the fittest. Whenever a bee fell into the pond, we would always try our best to save it. But sometimes the bees that we saved would be really mean to us after we saved them. Once their wings dried, they would start flying at us and, in some cases, sting us and end up dying anyway. So basically, we would literally save them from drowning in the pond, which unfortunately happened quite often in our pond. And then they would somehow see that as us threatening them, and then they would attack us and die. What a total waste of time. Wow, how crazy is this, guys? My first regular video in 6 months. Don't worry, guys, there won't be another 6-month gap between videos anytime soon. But just know that I have a lot going on right now, so videos might take a little longer than normal.